Today's episode is sponsored by Cool Properties. If you're headed to Las Vegas for a family or corporate outing and want a different experience, if you want to avoid the crowds, traffic, and chaos, you know what I'm talking about. Check out Cool Properties in Mesquite, Nevada, about an hour and a half outside Las Vegas. They offer a variety of property rentals, just minutes away from 2 world-class golf courses and luxury resorts. Full access to pools, hot tubs, gyms, and they are all located at the clubhouse. Bring the family, or not. Rest easy with Cool Properties. Click the link below for more details. Hey, as a business owner, I love to support small businesses like Ranky Brothers. Ranky Brothers is not just a costume shop, a novelty shop, a magic shop, or a prop shop. It's an experience. Man, we are so lucky to have these guys near us. You can get anything for any occasion, big or small, for purchase or for rental. They even host a state-of-the-art haunted house in the fall. Ranky Brothers is located right downtown Littleton. Check out RankyBrothers.com or stop by their store for all your crazy occasions. You will love it. Welcome back to Between the Fur. Is this 2 or 3 for you? This is 2.
I think it's 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was on with Mark Taylor once. No, you know what? I was on with Mark Taylor like a year ago, maybe, and we did one of the really early ones. It was like, when you're first maybe 5 or so. So we were on a long time ago, just the 2 of us.
Okay. Well, you and I have been on some different calls with some of the things that you got going, and which have been great. Have you gotten a lot of good feedback on that? What do you call it? What do you call it?
So my podcast now is called the Party in the Back podcast. Actually, next month in May, we celebrate our 11th year on the podcast, a monthly podcast. It used to be called the GameOps.com podcast. Now we got fancy. We have a name for it. So yeah, the Party in the Back.
I love it.
Ken, on GameOps.com, we started something, I think last June or July, called the GameOps.com Plus Huddles. And so those calls you're talking about they're 1-hour calls. They usually happen 2 or 3 times a month. And we invite just a slew of our, we have a membership-based piece on the site. But right now it's like we're still early, we're still young, so we're still invite a bunch of our friends and cohorts and counterparts to jump on and have that conversation with us. What we found, and this is what I found, this is kind of why I started GameOps.com, is you can learn so much from people outside of your sport, outside of your, we're both mascots by trade, but I can learn a lot from a game director and from a stage manager and from the lighting guy. And so we invite all those people together to kind of like talk about things, and you get those different perspectives from majors to minors, from soccer to basketball, and from mascotting to game presentation directors. And I think those conversations are really beneficial when you just dig in and you just, put your ears on and try to figure out what's going on in the world. And also you learn from the different perspectives. When you are a mascot, you always think about mascot stuff. Like, how does this affect me and what I'm doing in my costume? But sometimes you have to flip that around and be like, how does what I'm doing going to affect the rest of the show? Or will the lighting guy follow what I'm doing? How do I give him the cues that he needs and those kind of things? So understanding other people's roles is really important, in life, but also in sports presentation.
Yeah, it's been really a good situation for me as well. I'm now in a different role. A little bit different role, and I'm kind of behind the scenes a little bit now on headset, and I'm calling some of the shots. And it's one thing as a mascot to be sitting there going, okay, now I think this should happen, but to relay that verbally as well is a little bit different for me. Okay, now cut to this, cut to that, and it's a whole different world on the outside of a costume. So
totally. Yeah,
it's been really fun, and it's been fun to be on those calls with you guys as well. And it's funny to hear some of these minor league guys get on there, girls and directors, and to hear their point of view is sometimes I'm like, well, doesn't that just make sense? Hello. That
Exactly.
should just make sense to you. And,
Exactly.
why aren't you thinking like me? But they just don't. And, or most times, a lot of times they don't. And as mascots, to be able to convey what you need is sometimes a challenge without
Oh,
getting
right,
ego
right.
involved and without getting frustrated. And a lot of times, I'm better with my body language than I am with my verbal language. So that's a challenge I have. So those are, hey
No,
man, you've really touched on something good there. So hey, how do people get on those calls? Is it by invite or you say membership?
so we have so in I'll kind of like wrap this whole thing as much as I can. I got to tell you, this whole thing is new, and I'm learning every single month I go on, every single call I go on there. I'm getting my reps as a host, getting my reps as a promoter to kind of get people on these calls. So the idea initially, and what it's hopefully the dream is, what it's going to be someday, is just a straight membership thing. And I have probably, I don't want to go into the numbers. It's obviously a small niche thing, but we have members who are on this back end. It's like a separate site on GameOps.com called GameOps.com Plus. All those people, they always get the invites. That's kind of like you're on that. You're going to get the invites. It's like a separate email chain, that kind of thing. And there's a sub site, if you will, that you can go on and do some other things. And we have all the past calls on the YouTube clips of all those calls on the back end. So those people get invited. And like I said, what I do to try to buff up these calls and make it not just a handful of people, try to get, the perfect number has kind of been like between 12 and 20, right? And there's a good window where you get it. Everyone's involved in the conversation. It's not too heavy. And there's a lot of different perspectives. So to get up to those numbers, you got to invite more people. So I've been inviting, I start with all the people who are members, and then from there I invite a handful or sometimes 20 more other people just to see who can come in, who's interested. Some of the calls are niche. The last one we just had was with Mo Brazelton from the Sacramento Kings. He was talking about rehearsals and going cue to cue and kind of that whole practice. And, Ken, you and I are old school here. We were doing this in the 90s. The notion of coming in on a game day and going through cue to cue rehearsals with your whole staff, it was ludicrous. Nobody would ever
Yeah.
do that. And now it's actually pretty much, most of the majors do it, like, NBAs, NHL, they do it, even if it's a stripped down staff. But we talked about that. And so, again, it's not interesting for everybody. And there's some teams that are just like, we just can't budget. We can't do that. That's not possible. Or we're all union or we're all part-time. But again, just to find out how and why you do that and the benefits of it, and tips and tricks to get people into those Q to Q meetings and what they're going to get out of it. That's what we're talking about. So again, it's not going to be for everybody. And all those calls, we try to make it as broad as we can, but sometimes they get a little sports specific. Sometimes they get a little role specific. I'd like to think everybody can learn, but it doesn't interest everybody. So that's what we're doing. And we get these groups of people together. And I totally lost track of what your question was. Did I answer it?
I think you did. Yeah. I lost track too. I kind of zoned out there. Just kidding. Really, they're great. Even the Q to Q stuff, by the way, I've learned it's really helpful. I always wanted to fight that because I was like, nah, I don't want to come in early. Come on, man. I gotta work tonight. I got things to do tonight. But I tell you, some of those things that we're doing now really, really does help. And back in the day, the only time I would practice was like, okay, I got a dunk show coming up at the All-Star game. I got to figure out what dunk I'm doing. I remember one time, Tim Lewicki came. He was the president at the time, and I'm out there trying to dunk, and I ended up pulling my quad. Like it snapped, and I was so upset, and I was so sore and everything, and I'd been trying to dunk, and Tim Lewicki catches me in the hallway, and he's like, "So, what's the matter? What's going on?" I'm like, "Okay, I am so frustrated right now. I'm trying to go out there. I'm trying to do this dunk. I'm trying to come up with something, but I can't see. I got these big old feet. I got this big old tail. You want me, and I'm supposed to win a dunk contest? God, I just pulled my quad. See this knot in my leg? That's my quad." He's like, "Man, dude, you need to chill." He says, "The only people that you need to worry about is right here in this arena right here in this town. Don't worry about all that all-star stuff, man. You're not going to get anything out of it anyways. It's just for show. It's just for fun. I'm like, okay, really? I thought there was pressure here. It's like, nope, no pressure from me. I love that he had a great perspective there. But, now doing more Q2Q stuff really is beneficial. But, hey.
It's funny when I think about this, I think of everything in terms of wrestling, Ken. I've long been a fan. I worked for WWE for about 6 years. And one of the things
but you're a mascot. You've lived.
Well, I think like a mascot.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things that in the wrestling industry, everyone kind of yearns for back in the day, and they've kind of glorified these old time guys who could just come out there and cut a promo, and nobody would script it, and no one checked off the cadence and what they were saying, and the camera they were going to look at, all that kind of stuff. They went out there, they turned the microphone on, and they rocked the crowd. But here's the thing: the production now, when you go to one of those TV tapings in wrestling, and this again obviously parlays into what we do, it's so much more complicated. It used to be there was a hard cam and a guy standing ringside with the camera, and that's all it was, and you were waiting for one cue, and like it was like one person ran the music, they all knew what you're going to say anyway, and it wasn't that complicated. And now and like when back in the day, you could walk out on the court and do a skit, and your camera guy is one of them. You're playing to him, or he's just going to follow the action because he's doing whatever you did. Well, now there's ribbon boards. There's, that they're going to tag, your social media thing. You're going to play a video at a certain cue. They're going to hit this camera. You're going to hit that camera. There's 4 different entrances you're going to come out of. All these things have just like gotten more and more complicated as you go. And so that's the case for making these Q2Q. It's so much more complicated. It's not one guy who you work with every night. There's like a staff of 30 who are involved in that, in switching to the right camera angle, or picking up the right board, or bringing the right fan in. And as you go, it's like I know the answer to this. Is it more complicated than it was in the 90s?
Absolutely.
I mean, tenfold.
And the technology is crisper. Your TV at home, the screen in the arena is crisper. So everything has to be more crisp.
Yeah, because otherwise they pick up every error. So like Q2Qs in the 90s, I would have said, well, I think we all get it. We all know what we're doing here. And we did. At the same time, though, a lot of that there was so much a level of as I muff that up, it was so much more simple. I mean, it was just, like I said, 1 or 2 cameras. It was the same crew all the time. They kind of knew what you were doing. And now it's just not. It's just way more complicated. And so the Q2Q may not be for you, the performer, because you know what you're doing, you know your timings. The Q2Q is to get everybody on board with what you're doing. And that now doesn't mean 2 people, it means 12 or 18.
Yeah, and your control room, the guy calling the cameras, is in a completely separate room. Can't see the game live, so counting on cameras to see even what's going on, they have to know from that perspective, or see the game from that perspective. And so to have that already spelled out helps them a lot. We've run into some situations this season where I wish we would have made a couple things more clear. Because some people also don't have the feel for it when they're calling the cameras, and even the camera people, okay, I've even literally had to be on the headset during this one bit that I can remember, where I'm like, you pull the camera out, there's no frame of reference here. Where is he? He's in the third level, things. And they didn't even know he's in the third level. There's fans everywhere. Give him zoom in. He's been from here to here in the last 20 seconds. So show where he's gone from. Now he's there. That type of thing.
It's interesting too. I think about part of this job is scripting, and that a lot of times it means I know what I'm going to do. Like I wrote a skit yesterday, I know what I'm going to do, but now everybody has to know that. And in some ways too, like what you said, that little detail about when you go in the crowd and you show me, if you're showing a tight shot of my shoulders, I don't know where you are, fans can't look for you because they can't cue off of anything. And like you said, if you have to have the perspective, like, hey, he's way in the back row, that's important. And that needs to be in the script. And those are those details that they make the moment. And also, this is about, I don't want to be the old man screaming at the clouds, but like how different it is back in the day. Like you literally, the scoreboard is kind of icing on the cake. It's like, oh, you could see it. If you were confused, you could look to it. Now people go to the games and they're looking solely at the screen. I tell everyone now, if I'm not on the screen, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing because it's all just one-on-one. And so before, like you could command the audience from anywhere because no one was looking at it. Now there's a 90-foot television hanging in front of you. This 90-foot television.
And they literally will watch the screen more than they watch the actual floor.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's not even close.
Yeah.
It's not even close. So if you're not on the screen, you're kind of not being seen unless you're doing something majestic in the audience, and that's just rare.
Now, do you remember back at McNichols Arena? You were there. Back in the McNichols Arena, they had the two screens on the ends of the court. Like you had to look completely to the end of the arena. There was a north and south. There was two screens in there, but you had to look one way or the other, 180 degrees, and it was pixelated. The whole thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't even a digital
garbage.
print. It was just little dots, little. We could get video on there, but it was, it didn't even pick up all. I mean, I actually did most of my editing with two VCRs.
Yeah.
And if there was a little glitch in between, you would
never know it.
You never know it up there. So.
And now it's like we can't even run that. We can't run that. It's too bad.
Right. If it's not HD, we're not even putting it up on the screen. How times have changed. So
all for the better.
Yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely, actually, and it's helped us grow as performers, I think. Yeah.
I think so.
I was just going to say you're back performing now. Can we say that? Can I say that?
I've kind of lost track. I had this great little niche where I retired at one point. So then it's like, yeah, I can say anything I want. And I did go back. So now I kind of talk about it in past tense and people just assume I retired. So, but yeah, I rolled back in and, and I don't know the rules anymore. I don't know. Like,
hey, they don't apply to us anymore. They don't.
I guess not.
We're like grandfathered in. We're because we are grandfathers. Well, I'm a grandfather.
I will say this, and like I'm not gonna like deny anything. It's hard to talk in like current tense. Like this is what I do, and last night I did this. But so like something like this, it's like I'm probably not gonna deny anything you say. I'll talk in past tense for the most part. But yeah, we're out there doing our thing still.
Yeah. So Cleveland is a great place. Great fans.
I've heard.
And you are back rocking it in costume. I won't say which character, but how's it feel?
It's been fun. Like I think I was away from it for 2 years about. Mm-hmm. And again, it was like, I think when people asked me why I left, I was like, well, I kind of accomplished everything I wanted to do. And so there wasn't like I have to get this done. I have to achieve this. And so, but at the same time, when I was away, I was like, I really like doing it and I'd like to think I'm good at it. So it's like, I enjoy it. I think it's fun. It's the fun business. You're out there just trying to make people laugh and people smile and enjoy their time at an event. And so it's like, you can't go wrong with that. You leave there every night with a good feeling if you did your job. So
are you finding now that you're having more fun because you're doing it more for fun? Like you've been able to step away and now come back. Do you appreciate it more? Are you having more fun? Are you more relaxed?
Well, I think I've been relaxed for a long time. I don't think that was a real problem.
Yeah, you are.
No, yeah, I definitely have more fun. I kind of appreciate the fun because again, like you went away from it for a while. You're like, oh, it's a good time. And like, I think there was times too, I would be more frustrated if things didn't go well when I was younger. And now it's like a little bit more like, I know that not that it's not important if things don't go well, but like, now I'm like, that's kind of what it is. And you just keep working hard to make the next time better. But I wouldn't get as like mad about stuff. So,
not throwing stuff in the back anymore then.
Yeah, you're just like, okay, no. And I don't know. I was probably like that a little bit when I was way younger, but yeah, no, I think that part of it where you're like, I don't, again, like something goes wrong, I don't not care, but I also don't get really riled about it. It's like,
Well, it's
I'll
almost
fix that next
like
time.
if you're like me, it's almost like, well, I know this. I know there's going to have nothing's perfect. Something's going to go wrong. It's inevitable. And so, but back in the day, I wouldn't have that perspective. There's no, I mean, I've got the perspective now that I can, I can go out, I can put on a good show, and I can roll if something goes wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I think too. I don't know if you'll relate to this or not, but I feel this really was like this evolution of how I performed when I was young. I was I'm kind of an emotional person. I emote, like you can kind of tell my mood. I wear it on my sleeve. And I would lean into that. I would use that emotion. Like I needed that to like help me emote and like you said, kind of generate that expression through your body in your body language. And so I used that. And so I would like be into the moment. They did something great in the court. I'd be like, yes. And in the costume, you're just full emotion and you're tapping into that so the crowd can feel it. And I feel like now it's like I am confident enough with my ability to emote that I don't need that as much. And so I can kind of like, I don't like calling it going through the motions, but it's like I can kind of get to the point where I'm like, I can convey what I need to convey without tapping into that emotion. And so I think that's allowed me a little bit to like not have to dial up my emotions so that I could vibe off it, if you will. And so like, does that make
No,
sense?
I don't. It totally does, and I can really relate with that. I mean, I'm an emotional person. I mean, you know that, and you really do have to draw on those things and channel those emotions sometimes to get the energy to push through that next time out or whatever you got going on. And I I had somebody tell me very close to me this season, like, man, I cannot believe how emotionally draining this is, and how mentally draining. It's like I always just thought it was a physical thing. I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
no,
it's
I
just
think I can go a little deep on you here. So
dun
cut me
dun
off
dun
if this gets
dun.
dry.
Give me some
I
sound
had
effects
this
there.
moment. I had this moment when I was performing. This is 90, no, 2000-ish, when I was in Portland with the WNBA team. And I got guilt. I felt guilty. I was like, I'm kind of on autopilot is how it felt. I was kind of going through the motions. I knew it was I knew it was good. It was like I was getting the responses I want, but I didn't feel like I was like tapped in, like we just talked about. That thing where I'm like, I have to emote, I have to feel everything just so I can share it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read this book kind of on a whim. It's called, I probably have it here somewhere. It's called The Professional by W.C. Hines, I believe. It's a book about a boxer and how and the whole notion is this trainer is trying to get him to the point where he was like, quote unquote, a professional. And the way the trainer used it was an amateur goes, okay, you get your hands up. He's going to throw a left hook. I'm going to show you my boxing, like absolutely nothing. I know nothing about it. He's going to throw a left hook. And as an amateur, you go, oh, left hook. I'm going to put my guard up. I'm going to punch with my right. Okay. And as a professional, again, this shortens the book up into two sentences. As a professional, the guy throws a left hook and you don't think about it. You just do the motions.
Right.
And so the difference is an amateur has to process essentially. You have to think about it. You have to like send that neuron through your brain and be like, oh, he's coming to do this. I have to do this. And my next direction is this. And that's as an amateur. When you're a professional, you just do. You've done it enough. You do. And it's like, it's who you are. And so circling back to the book and the Portland fire thing, I felt bad because I felt like I was on autopilot. And I think what I had actually done, this sounds arrogant, but but I think I'd actually done is kind of crossed over where I was like, I just do. I'm a professional now at this. I'm not like I don't have to calculate every move. I can just go out there and be. And so while I felt like a little stripped down because I was on autopilot, I was just doing the job because it got easier for me. And it's not a bad thing. It was just like I'd just gotten better at it, and like I didn't need to do those mechanical things. I didn't need to draw on that emotion to capture what I was trying to do. I was just able just to do it. And again, you talk like there's the whole thing about you collecting the number of reps or doing so many hours in a job, and like you start to become it. You start to like, I can feel it, I can do it. And I just felt like it was like this epiphany for me. I'm like, being on autopilot's okay, because it just means that I know what I'm doing, and I don't have to like calculate and think about all these things. I can just do.
That had to relieve you a lot mentally. That had to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it was an aha moment.
oh, totally. I remember when I read it, I was actually having conversations with friends. I'm like, I was having such a great time. And those 3 years with the WNBA team were my favorite years ever as a performer. And that's between the second and third year. I was like, I think I'm gonna hang it up, because it wasn't for the money. It's like a WNBA I was doing for fun. And I was like, I felt guilty, like I should let someone else do this, because I'm now like not really feeling it like I used to.
Yeah.
But in the end, I was like, but I love it. I'm like,
Well,
I'm happy.
and do you think that people can pick up on that?
I don't know. Like I said, again, I wasn't shortchanging anything. That's the one part of this, though, I didn't feel like, oh, I'm shortchanging the audience because they don't get to see that emotion. It's like, again, it's like I could do that without tapping into those other things. So
Yeah.
I never felt like I was giving someone the short shaft on that.
Yeah, no, I can relate. There's times when I have thought, okay, am I really giving everything I've got here? Because I don't feel like it. Doesn't feel like I used to. You
Yeah.
know? And
Well,
so
you're
I went through something similar, and you know, I just call it having fun now. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm just having fun. I just got to the point where, all right, I'm just having fun. That doesn't mean that I didn't get nervous. I mean, there's
right.
still a lot of nerves involved with everything that I did, and people would ask me all the time, "Do you still get nervous about going out there? Are you nervous now? Are you got this coming up tonight?" Yeah, of course, absolutely. No, nerves are going and everything, but I did have the confidence that I could roll with whatever happened. If it failed, or because I had some really big failures, but going out on a 30-foot ladder. If I don't make it, well, what do I do? We'll get there. I'll figure it out. But I used to have to really think through. If I don't make it, then I've got to do something. What is it going to be? Can I, is everybody going to hate me? Is everybody going to boo me? If I get booed, what's happening then? What do I do then? And, throwing a half-court shot. I've gotten booed I don't know how many times. But I'll tell you one thing real quick that was an aha moment for me. Throwing half-court shot time after time, and you've been there, you miss. Well, people think you suck, and then they haven't seen the 100 that you made, last year or whatever. I got to a point where I was missing a lot in a row, and finally my emotions just came out, and missed. I'm walking off the court. Again, after what had to be like 8 games of missing this in a row. And I have to make them. And sponsored, the whole thing sponsored and everything. Coming off the court, boo, boo, you suck. I just lost it. I grabbed somebody's popcorn, boom, threw it in the crowd. Somebody else was, had their hand out. Whack! I just smacked their hand. Get that out of here. I got somebody out there, with their legs crossed, and I'm about to walk off the court. Their legs are crossed. Their legs are, straight out. I reached down, grabbed their shoe. I mean, it just came off like that. I hucked it as I came off the court. There's a stanchion right there. Knock that down. Walk over. There's another one. Knock that down. I'm walking out of the court. Another popcorn on a little wall there. Blam! I am mayhem all of a sudden. I go back in the back after in my mind, I lost it. Totally lost character. I go back in the back, and my assistant comes up, and he's like, "Oh, he's got big eyes and everything." I go, "What are they saying? What are they saying?" He loves it. He loves it. After the game, Game director comes back and he's like, man, that was funny. That was so good. Dude, do that every time. I want to see that every time. Couldn't believe it. Okay, that worked out. But luckily I didn't, you know.
Man, there's two things, Ken, as you're telling the story. When you pause, I was like, I know they're gonna say they loved it. But there's two things. Number one, it's real. Like it was real, and I think that says something. Not that you should be flying off the handle, but when you do that emotion, it's real, and that's part of being a character is that they have real emotions. You know what I mean? That a mascot doesn't just wear the shit-eating grin and walk around happy all the time. Like if you lose
Some
by
do.
30. Yeah, some do, but here's the thing: they're not real. Like,
Yeah.
and the Easter
No one
Bunny's
can
not
relate with
funny.
them.
He's not interesting. He's not. It's not because there's no up and down. There's no story there, and so I love that. And then the other part of this is, and this is it's that game director piece where it's like what he did, and he made. And again, I trust that he did love it, but what he did there is he like, you missed all your shots, but you know what he did? He gave you confidence.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I'm dealing with a situation right now where I got a guy that every compliment is followed with a but. That was great. Loved it. Everything went awesome. But yeah. So, anyways, so if you had okay, I sent you some of this stuff, some of these questions or whatever, but if you've thought about these, give me some answers on if you were, and I think this leads right into it, if you were to start all over, not being the expert, not putting in having had all the time, having had all the practice, experience, fails, mishaps, successes, what would you tell somebody just coming in?
You know, there's a couple things, like obviously talking to young Kenn Solomon and young John Cudo would be interesting.
And by the way, just a little history here. Sorry to interrupt, but talking about the young Cudo, the young Solomon, we literally started out together. Almost you started the year before me, but we met up pretty quick, and have experienced all kinds of things from day one and traveled the world together in different situations, been good friends for a long time. So there's a lot of history here.
Truth, can confirm. I would say a couple things that jumped out when you shot me this question. Number one, I would say collaborate more, and that sounds stupid. But I'm thinking back to like the last couple of years, and sometimes you kind of get a little siloed. Like I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this skit, I'm going to do this video, I'm going to do this. But the one thing I really enjoy is when you're working with your dance team and you're working with your drum line, you're working with and right now we talk about this complicated shows. Part of the complication is there's so many more groups and performers and the old people dance team and the young people dance team and all those things. It's like getting involved with those other teams. It always first of all the shows are always more interesting for their show and for your show. And again, it just exposes you to such different energy. And I've really, and this might be again coming back, I feel like that's one thing I really cling to now. I'm like, I really like those experiences. So I would say, I think there was a window where I was like really siloed, like I'm gonna do my stuff. And sometimes, you know, there's like a little professional
pride
maneuvering. Yeah. And pride, like I'm gonna do my thing and they're gonna do their thing. And but sometimes it's like, hey, just jump in with these other groups. And again, I think for the most part, if you're being respectful, obviously, of what they're doing, but I think that has such a great energy. So that was one of the things that I caught is like, and also collaborating with other mascots. And I know you've done a lot of videos, other guys, you bring guys in. I always feel like that just brings such a different energy and perspective to what you're doing. I really value that a lot now, more than I did at some points. And then I also think there's a real value in differentiating yourself. And there's a lot of best practices, kind of groupthink. And we get together for a conference and we're like, hey, this guy did this skit and this guy did this skit. And you end up, everyone starts doing kind of the same things. And I think there's a real value in pushing yourself to not just do the stock stuff that everybody does. And when I say that, I'm always like, well, I like doing this thing and this thing and this thing that everyone does. And like, again, that's all part of it. but it's just that constant press for yourself. Like, I need to stand out. I'm going to do my thing differently. And I think that that's something I would tell the younger guys, or tell myself if I could, is like, find those things that you do just you, because that's what's going to make you special. And again, that's hard.
It is. It's hard to develop that. It's hard to develop a personality in character. And I think developing a swagger where you don't have to, when you're with other mascots, you'll see them. You'll see a lot of mascots when they get in groups, they're all looking at each other. What's he doing? What's he doing in this situation? And that's okay to learn from, but it's also a great opportunity to stand out, do something different. Don't push it though. That, I mean, don't do something stupid, just to stand out. That always makes me crazy. But even carrying yourself with a sense of, hey, I've been here before, I've done this, and it comes, I think it comes through really loud if you can stand apart by having a little bit of swagger, confidence, and you don't have to do what everybody else is doing.
I think it's such a great point, is just to think about, like, how do I interject myself into this? Because again, that's part of it. The whole thing is like, sharing the stage, yes, but also you got to be on the stage. You got to like catch someone's eye, but it's like looking at every situation, be like, how do I put myself into that, and do respectfully, so you're not upstaging the mayor, you're not taking away from the message, you're not wrecking the event, like you said, like you're not going to put a pie in his face, but at the same time, like, you want to be like, how do I make the most out of this? And I love I have a great article on the website about creating celebrity. It's Tim Dirk, the original Spurs Coyote, and he just really talks about this in terms of, when you're out on the stage, you got to be a star. Like, you just can't be that wallflower in the back that no one pays attention to, because then you're, by definition, you're nothing. And like,
if you're not first, you're last.
What's that?
If you're not first, you're last.
Right, right. Ricky Bobby. But Tim has this example, and it's a little dated, but so is Tim, about the Carson show, where if you came out, you want to be the first person out, because they're the biggest star on the show. And then when you're done, don't scoot down the couch. You don't want to be there for the next guy. You're too big of a deal. You got someplace to be. And it's that mindset to be like, I'm a big deal here. Okay. And like you said, if you're a big deal mascot guy, you're probably not going to be standing in the back, as the mayor cuts the ribbon. You're going to be holding the scissors. And that's a big difference. Like, you are the celebrity, and part of you're the ambassador for the team. You're the guardian of that character, but also you're the one who has to elevate that character and find the spots that are going to make him a star.
Right. Speaking, that reminds me, I'm going on to another situation here. We've got a mascot in town that will show up early. Great.
Name names. I want to hear names.
No, because he's a good buddy of mine. Don't. Kate's over here, please don't. But he shows up early, stays late. Some situations, that's good. As a mascot, that is death. Don't do that. Actually, we have a couple of those guys in town. Be fashionably late or be right on time. Okay? Don't be late. But you know what I'm saying.
This has gone into bad advice theater right here. Just be late. Be late. Be unprofessional. You'll stand up.
But make an entrance and exit before it's done, or exit as it's done. Don't stick around. The punchline is over. Yeah. Go home. Get out of there. And when you leave, don't just saunter off. Don't just fade away. No. Peace. I'm out. Make a ruckus. When I was entering a suite, entering a door, anything that had a barrier there, bang, 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 bang on the glass, bang on the door, whatever. I'm here. When I'm leaving, all right, I'm clapping, I'm whatever, I'm making a noise, I'm out, peace, and then go. Yep. So it's just little things like that. That's what we're talking about.
No, I think those are right. I love the three friends of mine who know wrestling history.
enjoy this. The rest of them are like, what is he talking about? But there's I'll give another wrestling analogy into this. When I talk about standing out, it's like there was an old wrestler named Boris Malenko. And back in the territory days, there's like 26 territories. You'd float around different territories. And Boris Malenko said, whenever I went to a territory, I would just watch their TV show for a couple weeks. And if everyone on there screamed during their promos, I would whisper. And if everyone in there was a soft talking, they'd whisper and they would tell you, I'm going to fight you next week. I'm going to come after you. He goes, then I'd scream. He goes, I just wanted to stand out. I just had to be different than everybody else. And so like you said, when you got 12 other Denver area mascots there and they're all standing in the background, it's easy. You can stand out. But again, you got to find that way to make yourself. And sometimes it's just like, hey, everyone else is kind of milling around, low energy, doing like handshakes and stuff. I'm going to make a scene. I'm going to spill something. I'm going to make some noise. You have to stand out. You have to do something that makes you different and special. And not to be obnoxious, but just to find that little niche that's yours.
Right. So good. Such good advice. What's your passion? What's your passion when it comes to mascotting, other than, aside from wrestling? What's your passion?
It's quoting wrestlers is my passion. Now I'm just like, I'm scouring my notes. Is there any more wrestling quotes I can give him? Let's see.
By the way, while you're thinking of that, I love the whisper thing. When you're performing, you can also perform whispering.
Mm-hmm.
And people are so afraid to go there.
Yeah.
There's times when I was nervous to do this at first, but when I do a skit, no introduction, don't give me anything, and no sound. Just let it go dead. I'll walk out there. The silence will grab their attention enough. What? We're not playing? Because we're always like bombarding it. Our fans are just, music and loud music, and it's talking and it's yelling and it's that type of thing. But all of a sudden, nothing. Oh, yeah, that'll grab their attention. Or to go out and cut the music. I loved doing that. Love doing that. So
I totally couldn't agree more. And that's exactly, and actually, I just heard a great example from, I don't know if he's still your boss, but Steve Johnston from Kroenke Sports.
Yep.
He does the thing where it's like, okay, there's no sound. There's no MC. There's no dancing. There's no mascot. It's on you, Denver. And the whole thing is, it's like, first of all, he's challenging the fans, which I love. Mm-hmm. But again, it's that piece. It's different. It's going to grab you. You go out there to no music in the fourth quarter. Everyone's like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And you start a timeout with everyone saying, what the hell's going on? It's only going to go up from there. You've got everybody right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's so powerful. Like you said, the whole cut the music thing. I have like all my favorite timeouts are built around like you grabbed them, you got them. Yeah. Now what?
Yeah.
You should know where to go from there, but at the same time too, like that's such a powerful piece.
Right. And there's
it's
times
like contradiction.
And there's times when you can also go with the flow as well. When you hear it go silent, or when you hear the crowd all of a sudden doing something. A perfect example of this is way back in the day. Harlan, if you're listening to this, I love you, man. But he had prepared this big piece, this big intro video and pumper to play right before tip-off. And so I'm out on the court. He's about to play this video. And all of a sudden the crowd just starts chanting. And I think it was just a let's go thing, But it was so loud and it grew so fast. So I'm out there just going with it. Over the headset, man. He was flipping out. So mad. So my assistant was getting just chewed. Get him out there. Get him off the court. We're supposed to be playing a video right now. But this is the organic stuff that you can't shut down. You just can't think so tunnel visioned on this. Come on. The crowd is going nuts. Okay, play the video some other time. I know he'd put a lot of work into it, and that's what it was. That's what his anger was based on. But, man, it was a magic moment that, sometimes you just got to roll with.
Yeah, there's something there too where you cannot tell your fans to shut up, and that's what he's doing right there. I mean, again,
Yeah.
like I know the moments, like you said, there's a lot that goes into that, and like you said, the preparation, also just the plan. You had this whole thing plotted out, but again, like those moments, whenever you tell your fans, like, hey, you got to be quiet because we got to sell you some tacos, or we want to do this, we want to set this thing up. It's like and again, this goes into a little bit of playoff stuff. And you mentioned the huddle calls. We're actually talking about that this week with Rob Wyckoff. You should come to the call. But part of it is like in those moments, if the crowd's doing something, you either got to let them go or you got to add to the fire. And if you tell them anything else, like if you just let it sit and be like, hey, fans, and go into the whatever promo that you had planned, whether it be a contest, you don't cancel that. You're telling your fans, don't ever start that. Don't ever do that. Don't ever get loud by yourself.
Whatever you're doing is
death.
Whatever you're doing, you are training your fans. You're either training your fans to expect something bigger and better, or you're training them to expect something less, or to be quiet,
or to wait for your cue,
or to wait for your cue. Yeah, you can train your fans. You can totally train your fans. You can have 100%. Them eat it. Yeah. And you build that through your swagger, through repetition, letting them do their thing, and then channeling them. And it's where you direct their attention and when. Gospel according to Solomon. Deep. So
you're not wrong.
No. Good stuff, man. So, tell me a wrestling story.
A good wrestling story.
Are you still with the wrestling?
I'm not. Like the COVID just gobbled that up. Without boring everybody, I was one of the live event producers touring around doing house shows with WWE. As a freelancer. And when COVID came, they went from doing obviously, on the order of like four to six house shows a week, to doing zero. And they rebuilt their show and their touring aspect from kind of zero back up to where it is now. And it's still a little smaller than it was, but they're just been very judicious about how they added things back and what they do. And it just hasn't come together for that crew. They're doing some live touring now, but not at the scale. And then the role that I was in, they just haven't brought back at that scale either. So it's crushing because I loved it. Such a great job.
You were good at it too, and they loved you. From what it sounds like, from what you told me.
I like I said, I loved it. And the nice thing for me is I learned so much, and it was kind of like all the stuff that I had learned as a performer. I could kind of like draw on that a little bit. I think like a producer too. So for years I've had kind of like that producer hat on a lot. But like you noted, getting on the headset and making calls, making those decisions, that's tough. And, but just getting the chance to get the reps in and have that experience was awesome.
Oh, that's great, man. And anytime that you can expand your world, which you were doing, I mean, man, take every chance. I'm always telling people and my kids, hey, man, you're not just this. You got to learn everything. And if the more that you can bring to the table, the more valuable you are, the more fun you'll have, the more opportunities you'll get. Learn. So learn what they do, learn what everybody does, even the dance team director,
Oh yeah. I remember this kind of stands out to me. When I was at Nike, I had this great opportunity there where I was still a character, but they were kind of shorthanded. We're like, hey, could you write the script for the show? Could you help build this? So I went from being like a straight mascot to then I was doing a mascot and like some production work. And then I was directing shows. And they were like big shows. And one of the things that we did is we used these different groups for a freelance group for lighting and for staging, that kind of stuff. And I remember one guy was like, I asked him, I'm like, I don't really understand lighting that well. Could you help me out? So we went down and sat and had like a coffee and spent like an hour. And he kind of gave me what I kind of probably is like lighting 101. But it was like how you describe how the lighting effects are used. And
how what the beam looks like and all these different things about backlighting and forward lighting and spotlighting and everything. And I just thought, like, now when I sit down and have my vision as a producer, I can explain it in their terms. And there's a couple of things on my site that I'm really proud of. I don't know if anyone really uses it or not, but like, I have these resource pages where it's like, hey, learn how to speak their language. You're not going to be able to like produce a pyro show, but when you go to your pyro guy and you start the conversation with, I want to come out and have 2 gerbs crossing in front of me. Just knowing that language instead of being like, I want the fizzy things that have the spiral in them. And then they look, there's like a gas in there. And then sometimes like that doesn't help them. And then they're creating off their own, whatever they think you're talking about, as opposed to if you really have your vision and know the language, your show is going to be better. And also you're going to save time and money, and everyone's, he's not going to produce some show like, that's not what I wanted really, but he didn't understand what I was talking about. Well, actually, you didn't understand the words to tell him what you needed. So,
and they're going to want to work with you.
I love that aspect of learning.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because you're not wasting their time.
Yeah, you're going to look so much more intelligent to them, and they're going to want to work with you more and put on a better show, because everybody wants to put on a better show.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I love that aspect of, like you said, let's learn. Like, try to find somebody's job that you could be like, hey, what's this lighting guy do? What's the sound guy do? Why does this sound so much better than that? This comes into now too. The technology is so much more accessible for people. Like you noted, and I did this too. My first demo reel, actually my audition tape for the Timberwolves, I was doing VHS tape to tape cuts, which are it's linear editing, which anybody who edits would be like, like appalled. Anybody who's not, over 40, you'd be like, what are you talking about? But the fact you'd have to like plot out what you want to put in everything, because you couldn't adjust it later. Right. So you're literally building it as you go, like one big timeline. And if you screw something up, it doesn't matter. You're done. That's what it is.
Start over. And
yeah. But now it's like all the edit stuff, you can make a movie on your phone. And if you can't do that as a mascot now, take a break from your next appearance and go learn how to do that. Because like those are skill sets that you should have.
Absolutely.
Photo editing, music editing, video editing. Those now are basic skills for mascots.
You have to. But don't start there. I mean, don't stop there.
Yeah. Or stop there.
Yeah, or stop. Whatever you want to do. But build a menu, a repertoire of physical capabilities as well. I grew up rappelling. So when it came to rappelling, where? Let's go. I was tying my own ropes and everything. Now you can't even rappel anymore. You have to be lowered in. But when it came to all that, I was on it, riding a unicycle. Mark with the drums. I mean, what mascot plays drums? Stand out with your talents. Good stuff. And you know what? And one thing I've noticed about you and your performances, and we'll start to close this out here, but I wanted to hit this first, is in thinking about talking with you today about your past performances, things that I've watched you do and everything, you have a large presence with your body. And I would watch you after you would dunk, you'd have a certain move. And you did a lot of hands out type of stuff, and revving it up, and swooping and things like that. A lot of swooping motions and things, which make you look larger than you are without making you look like you're trying too hard. Some mascots are trying too hard to have big movements and walk like this. I was with a college mascot the other day, and just walking around, it was, I'm a jolly guy, and it was just big movements, like completely unnatural. You should have a walk. You should have a presence in your body language, but don't overdo it. You have a large presence, and it's due to big movements, but not overly done. So I was always impressed with that. Kudos to you, Cudo. Yeah.
Just
By the way,
I have a friend.
My wife calls you Cuto. So
Well, I mean, we can talk about that later.
yeah.
Just so you know, I have a very close friend who helps me and kind of gives me feedback on a lot of these calls and podcasts and stuff. And it's coming soon because I just needed to end, but he is hell bent on me giving kudos out at some point. Like you just have to give kudos for props for people for doing great things. You have to have a segment where you give kudos. So that's coming soon, I think, because I apparently it's my biggest flaw right now.
Well,
I have one more note. It's not a wrestling quote, which I feel bad. I should change the name to a wrestler. But I was going through when we talked about, do we have a minute or no?
yeah.
Let's do this. Let's
Take
do one
5.
last thing. Cause I was going through my notes when we talked last night about stories and whatnot. And this caught my eye. It's one of those things I've jotted down that I haven't used much, but I just love it. And as I reread it, I was like, wow, this is good. So Dwayne Casey, who was the coach of the year with the Toronto Raptors, now coaches the Pistons. This is obviously not a mascot quote because I don't believe he thinks that much about mascotting, although maybe he does because Hooper's there and Hooper's spectacular. So, so Dwayne Casey said I'm assuming about players, quote, "It's a lot easier to say whoa than giddy up." And I think for mascots, that's a really great quote because the hardest thing for a game director to do is to push you to say, you got to do something. You got to go catch the ride. Like we talked about here, it's like how you got to stand out. You got to get them out there. It's so much harder to push someone out there than it is to say, hey, what you did was great. Let's bring it back 10%. So we're a little more in control, a little bit within the show. That's so much easier for them to say than it is to say, go do something, anything. And I love that quote because it's a mentality of like, I need to be driving that. I need someone to tell me stop, as opposed to someone telling me like, well, I wish you would do something more. And I love that quote. Like I said, I just have it written down from whatever I was reading. And I just think it's a really great mascot quote from Dwayne Casey. Actually, I mean, from Hulk Hogan.
Excellent. I mean, one thing that I've told my son lately, one of my philosophies, gosh, throughout this whole time that I've been a mascot, was, hey, if you don't have anything to do, run. So
yeah, get out.
Yeah. I mean, no, not get out. If you don't know what to
no, not get out of the costume, but get like if you're on the edge of the court and you're not doing anything, you got to leave.
Right. Get out of the people's eye, okay? And then, so what I'm referring to here is there was so many times when I didn't know what to do, and they were like, "Get on, let's go, timeout just happened, it's yours." Okay, what do you want me to do? I mean, they just expected me to pull stuff out of my hat, and so nothing to do. I just run. I just go out there and run. I'd run out on the court. Run, go. If you don't know what to do something. Get out there, because 9 times out of 10. It really sucks when you that 1 time out of 10, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to run out there and you're going to experience something. Something's going to happen. You're going to get an idea. Somebody's going to yell something, or something's 9 times out of 10, if you'll just start something, do something, something will happen that you can play off of. It just happens all the time. The other thing is that I want to add to what you said. Is, instead of somebody pulling you back, I always wanted to do more. I never could stand the thought of somebody coming out and saying, "Hey, I didn't see you out there very much. Can you like work?"
Bad.
Oh, I could. That horrified me. So, this little bit here is something I think is a good little tidbit. I read this in a book the other day. By the way, get this book. I love it. It's called Influence is Your Superpower. Can't remember the author, but Influence is Your Superpower. And she says in there, ask. Make big asks. So when you go to your team, when you go to your employer, when you go to, whatever, make big asks. You will never get anything big unless you ask big. So if you want to go big you got to ask big. Eric McMahon told me about something that he got his police department to do, to shut down the freeway for him. I'm like, how would you ever think to ask that? And he did. And they did it. Helicopters and all. Shut down the freeway for him. So ask him about that. It was huge. I won't steal his thunder.
I love the tip of run. And again, when you said that, I thought, yeah, you got to run and get off the court and get out of the way, because you can't just having no energy sitting in the stand somewhere. It makes you uninteresting. Yeah. By definition, you're just like every other fan. And so to me, it's like, you're not doing something. You got to get off. You got to get off the court. And that's why even like for me, I always try to, like, if I'm in the crowd, I'm still reacting to everything. Like, you just can't sit and eat popcorn.
Oh, then you're just a guy in a costume.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but when you said that run thing to me, it's like run plus be aware, because you're creating it. But what that really is, and this goes back to this piece we just wrote on GameOps.com in the water coolers about Cameron Hughes. He's a spark. And when you run, that's energy. You're creating energy. And it's like, that's a spark. Something's going to happen. It's not like you're going to start the wave or the crowd's going to give you a standing because you're running, but something's going to happen. And like you said, right now, nothing's happening because they're like, you go do something. And that running is like, it's just a trigger. And again, who knows what's going to happen, but something's going to happen.
Yeah. Sometimes it was just me running around the court for 2 minutes, round and around and around.
Yeah.
Sometimes, people were like, oh my gosh, he just keeps running. Other times it was like, I'm not feeling this. And I just run straight across the court. And everybody's like, what was that? And then I'd run back across the court. Where'd he go?
But you know what? You know what you are at that point? You're must see. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Like, where's he going? And also, it's not, if you walked across the court to go off the tunnel, no one's going like, what's he going to do? Because there's no energy there. There's nothing there. You grabbed him though.
Yeah.
I love that.
Just run.
Let me write that down. Okay, do you wonder if Dwayne Casey has that in like a book? He's like, for mascots, I always tell them to run. That's my Dwayne Casey voice. I want Dwayne Casey to be like now like this mascot soothsayer where he just knows all, like this philosopher about all mascot things.
Let's have him
make
on
that
here.
happen.
Yeah, let's have him on here. Let's ask.
Big ask. Dwayne Casey, I know you're in the middle of like the whole draft season right now. Your season's over. Why don't you come on the podcast and talk about your mascot philosophies?
There you go. If we don't ask, it'll never happen.
He's not going to come on if we don't ask.
I got to get his number.
So between the fur mascot with Dwayne Casey, is that going to be, that's like.
And John Cudo.
Yeah, I'll come on. With Dwayne Casey? Hell yeah.
Seriously.
I'm in.
Yeah. We'll get Hooper on there too.
Now I think it's funny. Now I think we need to get off the phone and call him. Hey, Dwayne, it's John and Ken.
Let me refer to my producer here.
For what?
Produce
what?
Dwayne Casey.
Get him.
Sure.
Hey, big ass. You know, if you don't ask big, you don't get in it.
What? So ask me and I'll.
Cade seems to we've got a guy named.
Yeah. So ask Cade,
and I'll work it out.
Listen, you guys have connections to the Pistons. I know you do. It's a big ask. Let's go ahead and start making big asks.
Yeah.
That's it. Hey, Ken, it was awesome to be on with you. I appreciate your friendship. Like you said, we've been friends since, this is going to scare people, since 1990. That's old. We're old. A couple old dudes.
The day we met was, I think it was close to the 1st of December, 1990.
I think it's earlier than that.
Yeah,
but
November. It was November, late November then.
You'd know better than I would.
My first game was December 15th.
Oh, no. We met before that. I was at your audition.
Yeah, but that was only like 2 weeks before
that late in the season?
It was that late in the season. Yeah,
wow.
It was November-ish.
Can I tell you one of the things I remember from that? Are we off the air now?
Yeah.
I love, and you and I both had the same experience. But the person who was making that hire was like this sports legend. I mean, Carl Scheer is a legend. Yeah. You and I both work for Tim Lawicki, who isn't
wasn't a legend. He is a legend. He's still like the most powerful guy in sports. And like, just to, you talk about what you learn and where you learned it from. Like, we both worked under just these like amazing, amazing people.
Yeah. Yeah. Carl Scheer, man. I remember one scary moment with him just after hired, done a few games, scary looking individual standing on the side of the court. Because he was very stoic.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember coming off the court after a skit just bombed. Bombed. It was let's just say it was a college skit. Anything you do in college, I mean, unless you go out there and just put poop on the court, they're going to be a huge, yeah. Well, this bombed. It was crickets. I come running off the court, and here's Carl Scheer standing there with his arms folded, and he just kind of glanced. I saw him glance at me, just kind of like noticing that I was about to run by. But then as I ran by, he just looked at the court. The very next day, I was in his office. I was called into his office. He says, "Come in, Ken." Close the door. I sit down in front of him in a chair that's just like way too short for the desk, I'm short as it is. And he looks across the table at me and he goes, "Ken," he says, "this is the NBA. This is not college. Step it up." Thank you. That was it.
One sentence meeting?
Yeah. Yep. I didn't even say anything. I got up. I cleaned up my chair. And then I walked out. Man, and at that point, I started collaborating. I think I called Wayne Jordan because he was there at those tryouts. So he's the only mascot I knew besides you. I think I called you. And I'm like, wow, how do I do this? How do I step this up?
We figured it out.
Yeah.
I will say the only thing I thought about when you gave that story, and for those who don't know, Carl Scheer essentially is the man who birthed the NBA dunk competition, which I always love that fun quote or that fun fact. All I thought about on that story, no disrespect to your story, is that I just thought, does Carl Scheer, did he plot out, I'm going to give whoever's at my desk a really tiny chair? I just think about whoever's in this really short chair where you're below the desk. It's just total power move. Total power move. You're in my office. You're going to be in the tiny chair because I'm in charge. I'm assuming that's where he was at.
He wasn't a very tall man, so maybe.
Did he quote Dwayne Casey at any point?
I don't know.
At the time, Dwayne Casey's probably a teenager.
Not even.
Who the hell's Dwayne Casey?
Who is that guy?
All right. Well, next time I'm on your show, it's going to be you and me and Dwayne Casey.
Yes. And let's get Tim Malewicki on there, too.
I'm in.
Okay. All right. All right, brother.
I like how you picked up your phone. Like, let me call him right now.
I'm going to call him right now. All right. Between the Fur is available wherever you get your podcasts. You can find more of our content on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for listening. Peace.
I'm supposed to one up you and be like, "Peace out, I'm out of here."
That was the loud instead of the whisper. That was the ah.
Thanks for having me on.
I get it in.